Bust it.
They present the popular radio program Political Platform on the Ray Power FM network. Ray Power FM Political Platform, now on television. Keep track of the country's polity and be part of the process as they discuss and put political developments in the country into perspective. It's Ray Power Political Platform.
Hello and thanks for joining us. It's Political Platform. My name is Amechi Anapwe. Rains early hours of this morning at the nation's capital. Very refreshing. Is the polity refreshing too? But not so. Of course, some news telling us that indeed we need to work harder to get things going in this country, get the structures and institutions to perform their tasks for the benefit of all. For instance, in the National Assembly, the Senate told Nigerians that hopes that the 2018 budget will be approved this year were dashed because according to them, the executive failed to include details of the performance of the 2017 budget before the National Assembly members, and they insist they must have some peeps into the performance so that they can, of course, begin to indeed make preparations for the 2018 budget. So when will the executive submit that budget performance in good time for the National Assembly to consider it? The implication is that for months deep into 2018, we are going to be without a budget, just as we have had in the last 2 years. Now, the $1 billion to be deducted from the excess crude account for security operations is still a burning issue. The Vice President yesterday made some clarification saying the security issues to be tackled is not restricted to the northeast part of the country, but across the length and breadth of the country, just as all the local government areas in Ekiti states have gone to court, a federal high court, challenging the planned deduction, saying it is illegal. We have a legal practitioner who hope to indeed educate us on the legality of the SS crude account, as well as the provisions of the constitutions vis-a-vis the federation account. Now, David Mark, former Senate President and current senator, representing one of the districts in Benue State, is having a running battle with the EFCC. He was invited some days ago and grilled over allegations that he had something to do with campaign funds for Benue State in the last general election. That's not the only problem the former Senate President is battling. The EFCC and the Presidential Committee on Asset Recovery are alleging that indeed his present abode, his present residence, initially constructed as the official residence of the Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which David Mark bought in 2011, is illegal and must be returned to the government. Of course, big developments there. We shall, of course, be letting you into it. And the Christian Association of Nigeria and the Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs are the two umbrella body for the Christian and Islamic religion in Nigeria. In recent times, some of the action tend to suggest that maybe the country can do without these two organizations. They appear to be devoting so much time and energy to trivial issues. Recall when the Khan talked about Sukuk bond, wondering why it should be spread across Nigeria. Nigerians reacted immediately, reminding them that they were spending their money buying private jets instead of using it for worthy ventures such as the Sukuk, that they should keep quiet and look for other endeavors if they want to be well engaged. This time around is the Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs threatening protests and legal action over the ban on a law school graduates and the refusal by the authorities to prevent her from attending the graduation because she insisted on putting on hijab. Nigerians have said these are trivial issues that can be dealt with without tensions, unnecessary tensions being raised. There are many societal vices, challenges facing the country that these two bodies can devote more time towards tackling, such as the what issue we raised on this program, the prevalent rate of drug abuse in Nigeria. None of them have spoken up. When it concerns typical issues, development issues that affect welfare of Nigerians, they keep quiet. But when it's the trivial issues, they shout to the high heavens. And the Kano State Deputy Governor, Professor Hafiz Abubakar, has opted out of the 2019 election, saying he's being marginalized. He will not run with Governor Ganduje. Of course, he was nominated by Musa Kwankwaso as the Deputy Governor in 2015 and it cannot remove it from the rift between Kwankwaso and Ganduje. Adebayo Abodurin is with me as usual on the program.
Amaechi, if you look at the endless controversy almost on annual basis on the budget, I've raised it on this platform and I'm repeating it again that there is something we can take away from each administration, and we can take away from the Shagari administration the way and manner, the rapprochement, the level of harmony between the executive arm and the legislative arm of government. And what did Shagari did? What he did that time was that he created what we call caucusing, and caucusing is an acceptable standard in democracy. He created a caucusing in such a way that it was meeting at two levels in such a way that the executive arm of government and the legislative arm of government that was then likely controlled by MPN and MPP. I mean, the then MPP who formed the government, they were into a coalition. He was holding discussion with them. So on all major government policy, they would discuss it before it be formally presented to the then National Assembly under Joseph Wires. And then another level he was meeting was that he was meeting with all the leaders of the various political parties, particularly the Unity Party of Nigeria and the MPN in the National Assembly then, in such a way that almost all issues are ironed out before they are tabled before the National Assembly. So issues of budget, for instance, they will have ironed out the rough edges, and it will be easy for him go there, present it, and then you have easy passage. What do we have now? I doubt very much if there is any consultation at the level of the executive and the legislature. Even if there is, it has not been institutionalized in such a way that it will effectively minimize rift, disagreement, controversy between the two arms of government. And I think it's something that has to be looked into urgently, because this annual ritual of rift and conflict over budget, we need to really to put an end to it because of the adverse effect on the economy. As regards Kano State, the rift between Kwankwaso and the incumbent governor, Governor Ganduje. You know, one unique thing when this current administration in Kano State took off was that people applauded them. You have a government where the governor is a PhD holder, the deputy governor is a PhD holder, the wife of the
professor,
the wife of the governor is a PhD holder, the wife of the deputy governor is a PhD holder. So one was looking up that there be harmony, but you know, in politics, the level of academic attainment does not count. Does not count.
You need a PhD on the political turf
before you can resolve. So the conflict between Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, the former governor, who's now a senator, and the current governor is adversely affecting the relationship. I think, you know, most of the Kwankwaso appointees, if I will say it, have earlier been kicked out of the government. But maybe it was difficult for Ganduje to remove Hafiz Abubakar, the professor. Maybe now that calculations toward 2019 is already at work, the rift is becoming clearer and clearer in such a way that he said he felt slighted that even the executive in his ward, in his local government,
were constituted without his input.
Without his input, it's from Gwale local government area of Kano State. And if you take a look into Kano State history, political history, this is not the first rift that we have of that nature. There was rift between Abubakar Rimi and the late Bibi Farouk, who was his deputy, following the rift within the People's Redemption Party then, to the extent that Bibi Farouk was impeached as a way, and then Abdul Dawakitofa has to come in as deputy governor. So what we are witnessing is that educational attainment sometimes doesn't have anything to do with.
In Kano, Ganduje was the only deputy governor in 2015 to succeed his boss as governor. Second only to what we saw in Zamfara State, where Yerima had all the pleasure to allow his deputy governor to also succeed him. And so when it happened for
but you also recall in Zamfara, even despite the fact he succeeded him, a few years into the administration of his then deputy governor, there was a rift between the two of them, a very big conflict. Even to the extent that the then governor has to move to
another party,
to move to PDP,
and he was booted out of office. But of course, I was hoping that the deputy governor in Kano would indeed tap into the relationship that Ganduje had with Kwankwaso when they were governors and deputy. Maybe he saw himself torn between two masters. Do I continue to pledge loyalty to my political godfather or my new boss? Unfortunately, he couldn't manage the two. But let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll take your mails and we'll take a look at the issues. Please don't give away.
Bust it.
They present the popular radio program Political Platform on the Ray Power FM network. Ray Power FM Political Platform, now on television. Keep track of the country's polity and be part of the process as they discuss and put political developments in the country into perspective. It's Ray Power Political Platform.
Welcome back from the break. It's the mail segment, and I am Etenikang Akepu.
And I'm Amaka Okoro. Welcome.
We begin with controversies surrounding the $1 billion insurgency fund, and Dixon Eka in Abuja says the clash between the APC and the PDP governors over the approval and release of $1 billion from the excess crude account for the fight against insurgency, with some parts having Boko Haram and others having Hunger Haram, is totally phony. Does this mean that this decision was not unanimously taken by the governors? If some governors were not carried along in this decision, then who are the governors that are taking decisions and granting approvals for others? Can the chairman of the Governors Forum take decisions for all the governors without their due approval? The Hunger Haram in Ekiti also cuts across other states, and we can't afford to mismanage billions of dollars at this time. The president and the governors should explain this contentious and controversial issue of $1 billion. God bless Nigeria.
Ike from Lekki in Lagos State. The mail reads, "It is unfortunate how history keeps repeating itself in Nigeria. I learned yesterday that the Senate uncovered another pardon in the 2018 budget, specifically coming from the Works, Power and Housing Ministry, as they alleged that 120 million naira, 288 million naira, and 480 million naira were duplicated and allocated only for utility vehicles, 100 million naira allocated for files transfer, even as another huge sum was also already budgeted for ICT. The complete inability of the Minister of State for Power to defend the budget proposal before the Senate compounded the whole issue. And I ask, when are we ever going to get it right in this country? Why has no person or persons ever been tried or gone to jail for this kind of mess? May God help us." And this is how far we can go on today's mail segment. Keep sending your contributions to us. Send them through to us to politicalplatform@yahoo.com.
Thank you so much for writing to us. We encourage you to write more. Let's start with the National Assembly. Now, the 2017 budget, trillions of naira. It has the recurrent and the capital component. The recurrent payment of salaries, overheads, and what have you. Then capital, infrastructure projects, new projects that will impact on everybody. Now, the recurrent is for the little percentage of Nigerians who are employed in the federal civil service. They always, in the last few years, implement the recurrent expenditure aspects almost to 100%. But what of the capital? Sometimes we get 10%, 12, 15, 20. I can tell you that the 2017 budget, the capital aspect has not been implemented up to 20%. Some lawmakers are saying the facts they have on ground is that it's about 15%, and this calls for concern. We spend so much energy, waste so much time paying salaries, allowances, why we can't even, of course, implement the capital aspect of the budget. Why is the executive finding it difficult to present quarterly budget performance reports to the National Assembly as enshrined in our laws? Is it that the bureaucracy we have cannot easily administer budget? We have a very big problem in our hands. We are talking of 2018 budget when much of the funds in 2017 budget will be returned to the Treasury, as if we are on a vicious circle.
Well, it's a worrisome trend, and it's something that needs to be looked into thoroughly. A situation where we are just interested in paying civil servants who probably do not ensure that there are other aspects that also need to be looked into. But I have a very strong feeling that even if the civil servant fail, what are the political headship of those ministries, MDAs, and parastatals and agencies? What are they doing? The totality of it today is that if you look at all the agencies, parastatals and all the rest, they are headed by people who are appointed by the president. They are no longer a situation where they are picked within this the structure that exists in some of those agencies. So what are they doing? The totality of it is, were those money really released? That's the critical question we need to ask.
Are the funds available? Because
are the funds
much
also
of
available?
The projections for implementing the budget were external loans, external and internal loans, mostly external.
Yeah. So those are the questions we really need to ask. And I although I do not support a situation where the lawmaker will say that the budget will not be ready until March next year, I do not support it. At least what is worth doing at all, they say is worth doing well. A situation where if you even peg it at it, they will conclude discussions and deliberations by March. You may be thinking probably of mid of June next year. Probably
that takes us back to the old routine.
And
when we pass and approve budget, midway Uju has been in the National Assembly, and she understands the process of budget presentation, scrutiny, and approval.
Amechi, I think that whatever is happening is part of the systemic failure that we have been experiencing in this country. You find that the National Assembly was not even well disposed towards the budget estimates presented when put side by side with the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. And that was why they declared that the budget, some of them said it was dead on arrival, because they have estimates that are not achievable, if I may use my own words, realistic. And again, you talk about the revenue, the expected revenue to fund those estimates. I think that's where the problem is. Agencies, ministries, departments, agencies are not remitting revenue that they collect, internally generated revenue. The projected one keeps fluctuating because of the unstable oil price and the fact that the nation has failed to really diversify in spite of mouthing it over the years. So it's a systemic thing. We have not been able to get our budgeting right in this country. Projected revenue is not realized. They won from oil because of the international market forces is not something that you can totally depend on like that. And then again, you have the other side of it, because even before these current problems that we're experiencing, you had a situation where ministries would prefer to implement the overhead, the recurrent expenditure at the expense of capital projects. Some say yes, because it's easier for them to cover up in case of any sharp practice, any malpractice. It's easier for them to cover up with the overhead, unlike capital projects that are tangible things that you can see and assess. So I think that we really need to talk to ourselves in this country. Our leaders, the MDAs, Nigerians collectively, we need to talk to ourselves. We need to come to a stage where we realize that if anything happens to this country, if it collapses, it will be on the heads of all of us.
Sometimes the public servants will tell you the strict provisions of the Public Procurement Act make it very difficult for contracts to be awarded. You know, the entire process, shortlisting,
going to the
so many, getting the due process certificates, pre-bidding, name it. There is so much. But I wonder, this law has been in existence for nearly a decade now, and they keep always having problems implementing it. We really need to do a lot with our public service.
Let's rejig the law.
Maybe rejig the law. Some attempts were made to rejig it, but more importantly, improving the capacity of the public servants to deal with the problem. But let's go to this. Remain in the National Assembly. David Mark, former Senate President, is shouting to high heavens that the federal government appear to, of course, be carrying out a witch hunt. And he believes that indeed all these activities happening around him, allegations of corruption, is targeted at 2019, that the government is not very comfortable with his status and believes that they need to hound him to indeed reduce his political base. They say the house he is presently occupying, which he bought from the federal government, David Mark says the advertisement was made, valuations carried out. He was asked to pay over 600 million, and not just him, Deputy Senate President, That was Ike Kweremadu then.
The
Speaker of the House of Representatives, Dimeji Bankole,
yes.
and Nafada, I think Nafada, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, they all bought their houses, and he's wondering why the government want him to return his money, return his own house, because according to them, indeed, it was illegally done. And of course, what we are hearing from sources close to David Mark this morning is that the EFCC had gotten a remand order from a court to keep David Mark in the cooler for 14 days. And of course, to enable them grill him on some of the allegations and some of the cases they say they have against him and which they're investigating. Is one thing we are quite familiar with. I recall Anyim Pius Anyim, the former secretary to the government of the Federation, was detained by the EFCC for weeks. Up till now, he has not been charged. I thought once you detain and investigate, you have a watertight case, you quickly indeed go to court. But maybe the anti-corruption agencies are still trying to put their their investigation report together to make it a watertight case. But let's hope they don't just go arresting people for the sake of arrest.
But all I know is that if they have to look into all those houses that were sold to the occupiers, then it has to be holistic, because David Mark was not the only person who bought those houses. There were others. There were even those who are not in the National Assembly. Exactly. There were ministers.
Even civil servants.
There were ministers. There were political advisors to the president then. I mean, either during the Obasanjo regime, but under him that the monetization started, and others. So it has to be to holistically look into, were those houses undervalued? Were there sharp practices? Those are the things that we need to know. But when someone is picked out of several people, that is what raises question about the motive.
Maybe the FCC will say educate us more on why.
Because I do recall then when those houses were sold to principal officers of the National Assembly, the reason given them was that the essence of building the legislative quarters has been defeated, because private individuals have now purchased those houses,
and the security has been compromised.
And therefore it's either they acquire it or the government will build new houses. These are issues that really need to be looked into thoroughly.
Let's go to the excess crude account, very controversial. Local governments in Ekiti State dragging the federal government to court, saying plans to withdraw $1 billion from it for security issues are of course illegal, and they want the court to stop that. How legal is the excess crude account? What does the Constitution say about the federation accounts and money accruing to the federal government? Let's join Barrister Abdul Mohammed, a lawyer based in Abuja. Thank you so much for joining us, Abdul.
Thank you for having me, Amechi.
So how legal is the excess crude account?
That's a very serious question, Amechi. Well, anyway, let us start from the provisions of the Constitution. If you look at the provision of Section 162, what you have there is called the Consolidated Revenue Account. Federation account. And in that federation account, all revenues accruing to the federation is payable into that account. And the revenue is shared as per Section 162 sub 3 between the federal government, the state government, and the local government. And this decision was reaffirmed by the Supreme Court in the case of Attorney General of the Federation against Attorney General of Abia State. Now, if you look at Section 81 of the Constitution, that empowers the National Assembly to make laws with regards to appropriation. However, in both of these sections that pertain to sharing funds accruing to the federal government, there is nowhere where the excess crude account is stated. But the reason why you create the excess crude account is based on the appropriation itself. Let's take an example. If the federal government makes an appropriation pursuant to Section 81 to say, okay, we are benchmarking our revenue to 81 $81 per barrel, and then the oil is sold for $85 per barrel for that year. The excess $4 is what the government put in that account. Now, that account will not say it has any legality, but in the economic sense, it will have economic basis. So in the Constitution, there is nowhere where you have room for excess crude account, but it has been commended as a way of saving for rainy days.
What the Ekiti State local government chairman are saying is that the money in the excess crude account, they are part owners, and their authorization is needed before any deduction. Now, they said because they are part owners, they must authorize. Then also these states, through their houses of assembly, must also authorize before deductions are made. But what do we have here? The governors met under the Governors Forum and the National Economic Council, and they took a decision to remove money from that. And now, how legal is the action of the National Economic Council?
You see, again, when you look at these things, you find that it will be safer for any lawyer talking about this issue to just maintain the stand taken by the Supreme Court in Attorney General of Federation against Attorney General of Abia State. Revenues into the Federation account should be distributed as per Section 162 of the Constitution. I do not know whether anybody could go beyond the dictate of Section 162 in the utilization of the funds in the Federation account. You may have a good intention, but in law, your action must be backed by law. Thus, if the manner in which it is distributed, it is not correct. I understand the Ekiti State government, they have already submitted it to court. Then it will be subjudice for me to say anything about that case. But I could say, to the extent that the Supreme Court has decided Attorney General of the Federation and Attorney General of Abia State, to that extent, any money in that account must be distributed in accordance to Section 162 of the Constitution.
Thank you so much, Barrister Abdul Mohammed, for your legal insight.
Thank you very much for having me, Amici.
Okay, at least we know how money should be disbursed, money belonging to Nigeria, but for political expediency, we have the excess crude account.
But I think all these issues should maybe perhaps there is need for consultations on issues of this nature. Not a situation where proposals are tabled at a meeting and then decision is taken. If you recall, there was this conflict.
The decision of the Governors Forum should have been taken to the local governments and state houses of assembly for approval.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, my colleagues, for your input. Thank you so much, our dear listener, for being part of today's edition. Please do join us on Thursday for another edition. My name is Amechi, and we'll have a wonderful day.
Bust it.